Hello, my name is Cat Purcell, and I'm the career librarian at the Champaign Public Library. I'm going to be introducing you to Resume 101. We're going to get started with the basics of building a resume. Give me just a moment while I get my presentation slides up. Before we get going to the presentation, I want to remind you that we can always help you wherever you're at in your career search stage. If you're looking for a job, you're getting ready to interview, or you just need some help on anything career related, we can help you out. We do book a librarian appointments, which is a one-on-one consultation where we can help you out and sit down with you one-on-one. But we also have live chats and email access available. Now that we've got that clear, let's start with some resume basics. Once again, I'm Cat Purcell. I'm the career librarian, and you can reach me by email at cpurcell@champaign.org. So, why make a resume? Maybe you've never made one before. Maybe you're just starting out with your career path and you're not really sure what a resume is. Maybe you've been in your career path for a long time, but always gotten jobs by word of mouth and never needed to make a formal resume. That's okay. All of the answers and explanations are possible. And we're going to go into the basics of how to build that resume. So it's a great way to sum up your experience and your skills. Usually they are 1 page to 1.5 pages. So it's a quick snapshot of your work history. It's also a great way to have a good first impression before your interview to show how you present on a piece of paper. It is an expectation of most employers these days to have at least a digital resume, if not a physical one at the interview. And it gives you that opportunity to interview because they can see that you have the skills that they need for that position. So, what's in a resume? These are the bare minimums that every resume should have. They're going to need your contact information. So, if they're ready to offer you the job, they need to know how to get a hold of you. So, if that's your email or your phone number, go ahead and put it on there. We're also going to have your work experience listed. And I usually like to say professional experience when I use it on my resumes because your experience doesn't necessarily have to be something that you were paid for. Maybe you've got really great scheduling experience that you've used from being a babysitter. Or maybe you've been a stay at home mom for a few years and you're really good at making sure everybody's eating and taking their medications and you're looking to get into nursing. Those are applicable skills, even if you didn't get paid for that work. It's also a good idea to list your education. If you have any certifications or licenses, those are all good things to put on your resume. And you also want to put in any volunteering hours or groups you're a part of. If you've got any certifications or other skills that might fall into those categories and be applicable to that job position, put it on that resume. What are some basic resume guidelines? Resumes these days can look so different. And in fact, I even encourage people to modify each job application's resume individually for a lot of different reasons. But let's go over some of the basics of every resume guideline. It's good to customize and tailor your resume for the position. That gives you a chance to go through any applicant tracking systems, which we'll get into later, by looking at some of the job description skills and matching it to skills you already have on your resume. It's also a good idea to maintain a master copy of your entire professional experience. I'm a big fan of using Google Drive, but OneDrive from Microsoft is a good option too. But before those were options, I always kept a resume on the top corner of my desktop and it had everything I'd ever done on it because you never know when that's going to be applicable to the position you're going for. So I went to undergrad as an art major and it's got a list of all the art shows I've ever been a part of. I'm probably not going to do an art show again, but you never know. I've got it there on a reference. Now that I'm a big fan of digital cloud storage, I also have a master resume in my digital cloud as well through my email account. Make sure when you're doing a resume, you're looking out for any grammatical spelling errors. Nothing is a bigger red flag than saying your attention to detail is excellent and then seeing grammar or spelling mistakes on your resume. If you can, focus on your transferable skills on your resume. I always recommend people put those in your summary or your list of skills right at the top, because if you've got really great customer service, that's going to be a plus regardless of what industry you're going into. If you really got a handle on an Excel file and all the different formulas that could go into it, put that right at the top. So you can use those in just about every job, and those employers will want to see that. It's also a good idea to highlight knowledge specific to the job field or the job position you're going for. When I was applying to this job here at the Champaign Public Library, I went to their website and saw that they were already using the same catalog system and the library system I'd used before Champaign Public Library. So I made a point to put on my resume that I was already familiar with the Polaris catalog system. That was one less thing that they knew they were going to have to train me on when they offered me the position. So here's some more guidelines. Ensure that your contact information is correct. If your phone number or your email has changed, go ahead and make sure it's current on your resume. Nothing is worse than getting a job opportunity missed because they couldn't get a hold of you. Include simple headers like your professional experience or your work history that make sense no matter who's reading it. On each work history list out each 3 brief descriptions. It doesn't need to be a whole paragraph. And if you have any more than 5, they're probably not going to read all the bullet points you list. Save that for your LinkedIn profile. If you can minimize abbreviations and career jargons, please do it. So like I just mentioned, Polaris, it's a good thing to put on that resume, but if I was applying to a library system that didn't use Polaris, what does that even mean? You probably don't even know. So if you're applying to that position and you can minimize career jargon, please do, because you never know whether that hiring manager is familiar with that database or not. And across the board, avoid starting your sentences with I. You can do that a little bit in the cover letter, but it kind of comes off a little conceited sometimes on a resume. So it's good to avoid it and just describe what you did as a fact. Across the board on resume guidelines, keep it a basic font. If you're making Comic Sans, it kind of comes off unprofessional. The curly cues are cute in your name, but maybe it makes the whole thing hard to read. It's also going to be really difficult when you upload it to a website for it to scan those silly fonts in. They're very cute, but they're not great for a resume when you're uploading it. So keep the size, style, and color consistent and professional. Make sure that if it's bolded in one area, it's bolded in all the corresponding areas. Those indentations can really catch you too in a Word document. Keep your font size between 11 and 14 font, except for your full name, because you want your name to stand out right at the top. Arial, Calibri, Georgia, and Times New Roman are great examples of classic fonts anyone can reuse and any computer can read. Be aware of your length and spacing on your resume. You don't want to be more than 2 pages unless you're going to academic or medical field stuff. And try to keep those margins between 0.5 to 1 inch. If you have a lot of blank space, it's obvious, but if you don't have enough, it makes it hard to read. Keep it on nice paper if you're going to print it out for that job interview. But MS Word and PDF documents that come in the digital file format .doc or .pdf are standard and are going to be accepted across any website you're applying to a job on. And if you're using a creative resume, like if you're going for an illustrator position, use it, but save it for the interview because sometimes those don't translate through the internet very well. If you've got any questions, feel free to send us an email. You can always reach us by phone at 217-403-2000 or by email at librarian@champaign.org. So now that we know about the basics of why and how to make a resume, what can you do to make those resumes? Very recently, I've heard people telling me that they paid $20 to $200 for a resume, and that makes me want to cry because there are so many free resources here at the library or available to anyone that you can use to make a resume. There's no need to pay for it. You're going to get just as polished looking resume as you can here for free as you can to pay $200 for one. Here are some options. The first 2 are accessible through Champaign Public Library's website. If you have a library card with us from home, or if you come in physically and just get on one of our computers. So Brainfu's Job Now includes a lot of great resume templates that you can use for free and download and edit at any time. And Cypress Resume is one of our new tools that we have here at the library. And I think it's a great resume builder for those who are not so tech savvy or very tech savvy, but they don't really know how to describe what they do. If you're not able to access the library's website or come in and on person, check out your Word templates. LinkedIn Learning, if you have that option, or Google Docs. And I'll have a little tutorial that shows you how to access any of those because they're all free and easy to access and you can store and edit them for free anytime you want. So with that being said, I want to go into a little bit more detail about applicant tracking systems. It is a good idea to tailor your resume because of applicant tracking systems. Use keywords from each position description that match the skills you already have. Don't copy and paste the whole thing. But if you're reading a job description and say, hey, that sounds like something I already know how to do, take a couple keyword phrases from that job description on that online job position and plug them into your resume description. That's going to make sure that your resume gets seen and gets through the applicant tracking system. Standard to large jobs organizations these days is that for every 5 positions open, over 200 people are applying. So most of them are not even getting their resumes seen by actual human eyes because an algorithm is weeding them out. This is a good way to make sure that your resume is getting seen by an actual person on the other side. Keep your formatting consistent on your resume. When you scan in your resume and upload it to the website, it might be changing around some of your formatting. So you want to keep it simple and keep your work history consistent on how it's formatted across the whole page. If you can avoid any graphics, logos, icons, tables, columns, or specialized design elements, please do. A skills chart looks really flashy on an in-person resume, but that table is going to be hard for the computer to read and it might get rejected just because it's got a table in it. Creative elements look really cool, but like I said, keep those for the in-person interview and not for the online application. If you can, keep it as a doc or a PDF file. That's going to make sure it goes through whatever the website you're applying through. I always recommend PDFs over docs because then they aren't editable. That's the major difference between a doc, something made in Word or Google, or a PDF. You can send them that information without it being something that they can download and change later. So now that we've got how to make a resume, let's go into the type of resumes you can make. The most standard one is a chronological resume. That's the one most people are familiar with. It's going to be strong and steady work history based. So it's going to start with your name, your contact information, and work backwards from the position you have now back to wherever you last worked. Now, I most commonly use this example for these types of resumes to not go too much further back than the last 5 jobs or the last 15 years experience. If you can keep it to a page, that's a good way to do it. These are recommended for people who are staying within their career field or have consistent work experience. It shows the progression that you've had throughout that entire career. But most people these days are using a functional resume. These are transferable skills focused. So you may be changing industries a lot, whether you're going from the medical field to a teacher. And that might be a good way to show off the skills that you had at a doctor that might translate to educating the youth of our future country. So it's going to emphasize the skills that you already have. This is a really good way to use, a really good resume to use for people who are recent graduates or changing career fields or have employment gaps. Maybe you were out of work for a time taking care of yourself or someone else. And a skills first functional resume is going to be your go-to for that. Then there's also the combination or non-traditional resume. Those include images, infographics, online portfolios, and websites. They're often used by creative fields like web designers, graphic artists, and illustrators, where visual capabilities are really important to what they do. So now that that's out of the way, to be or not to be about an objective, that's up to you. It used to be the old standard to use an objective no matter what, and that's going to look something like a brief statement that defines the type of employment you want in your career goals. But its focus is what I want from you as an employer. It's not as much common anymore. Employers don't always want to hear, and most of people's objectives looks the same. I want a job, right? You need to pay your bills. So I recommend using a summary. That's 2 to 3 sentences that grab the reader's attention and highlight the skills you have to offer any potential employers for the job that you're applying for. This shows them what you can offer them. And this is a really great tool as well because most people only spend about 6 seconds reading a resume. So if they're only going to spend that short of a time on it, you want to make sure that you highlight all your top skills right at the top so they can capture what you're interested in if they don't get a chance to read the whole page. Here's some examples of objectives. These are still used and sometimes they're still relevant. So take a look at these and see if these work for you. To acquire an entry-level position as a medical assistant, to obtain a production manager position with supervisory responsibilities at Aramac Industries, to secure a clerk position that allows long-term advancement into a position of increased responsibility. These are all really good objectives when you have a clear career goal or you're trying to adjust work at one particular company. Here's an example of a summary. Dedicated library assistant with 7 years experience providing excellent customer service in reference and circulation teams. Regularly spends time assisting customers in understanding technology, receiving the materials they desire, and reaching the public aid programs they need. Enjoys providing thorough help to customers and often thinks creatively to meet their needs. Excels at helping patrons learn job seeking skills, resume development, and finds reliable information. Created the Legal Help Program series to help connect residents to free legal help, hosts quarterly ancestry programs. That's my summary. So here you see an example of a way in a paragraph that I can capture all the skills I can bring to a position that cover a whole gamut of interests that might be relatable in a library position. Here's another example of a summary. Graphic design specialist with 5+ years experience in management of the complete design process from conceptualization to delivery. Adept at interdepartmental and interpersonal coordination and communication. Skilled with Adobe Creative Suite, including Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, Microsoft Office, and web design application, Dreamweaver, and HTML. Able to stretch the boundaries of web design and digital storytelling to help my client's brand stand out. I wouldn't personally recommend using the word my in the summary. Like I said, avoid those I and my's, but it still really works as a good summary. So, once again, if you have any questions, let us know. Here's some examples of some common resume types. These are all just examples, and you can take some of these formats and use them for your own. Here's an example of Robert Sample. He's got career summary as a bookkeeper and financial analyst and general accountant, but we can see here that he's come from a wide background here. He starts with his skills focused on the job he wants, even though he's got a lot of expertise in finance and accounting, as well as medical fields. And I'm going to pause here. You're welcome to pause the screen as well if you want to look over this a little bit more. This is a full 2-page resume. I don't always recommend that is what is needed for every position you apply for. Some of them might want that detailed information, but this is pretty word heavy. You see, you might even be struggling to read the whole thing, and that's okay. So if you're doing it, the person looking through a lot of applications is probably skimming and not paying attention to the whole thing, but it's still a really well laid out resume. Here's an example of a functional resume. This person has not done a whole lot in their whole work history. Seems like they're pretty young, but this is a good way to flesh out a resume when you don't feel like you have a whole lot of experience where you got paid for the experience you have. You see that this person just finished their Bachelor's of Arts and they have a high school diploma, but they don't have much paid work experience. That's okay. It looks like they were a senior class vice president and they have a lot of skills with communication and coordinating between colleagues from that. They also were a youth counselor where they supervised youth with various ages in various organizations and activities. And they were a crew member at McDonald's and they list their descriptions there too. This is a really good way to capture everything from volunteer to paid work experience that could be relevant to the position you're going for. Here's an example of a creative or a non-traditional resume. Like I said, these look really great and they're a really fun way to play around with those digital skills if you've got them. But that resume itself is not going to translate well online, but it is very eye-catching. So if you can make something like that and bring it to your interview, please do, because that's great and most companies want somebody with those skills. Now for the demonstration part of how to find the best access to free resume and cover letters. If you're going to be on Google, here's how you can find resume and cover letters. Give me just a minute while I present my screen. So if you have a Google account or Gmail, you can follow this walkthrough to find your free access to resume and cover letters. The great thing about Google Docs is as long as you can log into your email, you have the ability to log in and download and share and send your resume or cover letter. So you'll start off by logging in, and then you'll go to those 9 dots up at the top by your name or profile picture. Some people call those a waffle. You'll click on your drive, and then that gets you access to all the documents you've saved. If you go to the drop-down menu for new, you'll see templates. They have templates in a score of things from docs, Excel sheets, or sheets, and presentations. And I welcome you to explore where those are at. Here you can see where your resumes are. You can pick a resume or a cover letter, and they're going to match the template. Now you can just plug in your information. If you don't have a Google Doc account and you have Microsoft instead, which is MSN or Hotmail or Outlook, this is how you would access the same free ability to use a free template that you can edit and store online at any time with access as long as you have access to your email. So if you open up a Word document, you're going to see resumes and cover letters at the top. There's also a search bar where you can put that in. Here is in Microsoft Word where you can find your matching resume, cover letters, and templates. These are both for cover letters and resumes. They'll go together in matching formatting, so you don't have to worry about them looking like they go together. You can choose one that works for you and then go ahead and click Create. From there, you'll be able to edit it and put in your own information so that you can do this for a cover letter or resume that match and submit easily for free whenever you need to. Here's an example of what those look like when they match in Microsoft Word for both a letter and a resume template. So next I'm going to go into Cypress Resume and how to access it from Champaign Public Libraries. I'm going to create our website here in this tab, champaign.org. If you are at home, you will need to log in with your library card number and PIN. But if you're at the library, you can have access to it without even having a library card with us. Just log on to one of our computers. We'll go to our website and click eLibrary. From there, you're going to choose Online Tools. And all of our tools are alphabetical order. So you're going to scroll down to Cypress Resume. Here's where you can access resumes made easy. It's a really great place to put your information, especially if you're struggling with how to describe what you do. You can create matching resumes and cover letters and a reference sheet all through Cypress Resume without having to log in, and all for free through the Champaign Public Library's access. If you just type Go, you can choose your example of a resume. Both of these are great ones to use, and both of them are skills forward. So you can then start by putting in your name and your contact information and go from there. Once you work through all these boxes, you'll get a nice crisp resume that matches a cover letter, and you'll be good to apply to that job. I hope these tools help you out in building your resume and cover letter and help them feel less nerve-wracking to make. Feel free to reach out to us if you need help. Thank you and take care. Bye.